Every day, I'm looking to see whether or not this ceasefire will hold and your loved ones will be brought home. Focused on making sure. In fact, that's questions that I ask all the time, saying, what did we do? And every time we have these conversations among ourselves, one of the first things we bring up is get the hostages home. A lot that we need to do. But the first thing that we need to do is to make sure that we get the hostages home. And so some of us are here, some are new members of Congress. They need to hear your stories. They need to know, as many of us who have heard them over the last 2 years, because there's going to be an effort that has to continue, not a partisan effort. This has to be an effort that we work collectively, Democrats and Republicans and independents, and as human beings, we can't stop until your loved ones are home. We can't get distracted. We can't let noise come and cloud them. What the first objective has to be, bringing your loved ones home. So I thank you, because I know that as difficult as it is for you to have to repeat your pain, it is important that you articulate your pain to any and all people that will listen, but especially to members of Congress and others, so that we can stay on our leaderships and move forward and try to get them home and make sure that peace can have a possibility. Thank you again, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you and let you know that my prayers and my heart is with each and every one of you. Words will never be enough. Never be enough. We will never forget and never stop working. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Ronan and Orna, can we begin with you two?
Thank you, Chairman Must. Thank you, Ranking Member Meeks. It's our third time here. We appreciate the opportunity to speak and focus on this dire humanitarian situation that started 495 days ago. We are Orna and Ronan Neutra. We live on Long Island, New York, for the last 25 years. On day 422, a little over 2 months ago, our family was delivered the devastating news that Omer, our son, died in Hamas captivity on October 7. For 422 days, we prayed, we marched, we spoke, we've been everywhere. When we said Shiva, the customary 7 days of mourning, thousands of people came to pay their respects. The flag was flown at half-staff throughout New York, and New York congressmen spoke about Omer and our fight to get him back here in Congress on the floor. It was heartwarming. President Trump called us and sent us a letter of condolences, and we so much appreciated that. To many, Omer was a symbol of the devastation caused by the events of October 7. Many who knew Omer personally shared with us the very profound ways Omer had influenced them, inspired them with his kindness, sense of humor, and tactful leadership. Both our boys, Omer and Daniel, who spoke here at the committee last year, grew on Long Island, New York, their childhood surrounded by a warm Jewish community. Omer was the center of every community he touched. He was the captain of his high school sports teams. He was the regional president of his youth group. He had a unique way of making everybody who talked to him feel like they were the most important persons on earth. After spending a year in Israel before college, deepening his bonds with a broader family and new friends, Omer felt he had a duty to protect the people in Israel and to serve in the IDF. And so he volunteered and joined. On October 7, Omer was a tank platoon commander and a first responder to the border invasion and rushed to the front to fight and save lives. After excruciating 422 days of endless worry for his safety, fighting and advocating for his release together with all the other hostage families, we were informed that Omer was killed on October 7. Within our devastation, we lost our hope to reunite with him alive. But Hamas, this terror organization, is holding him and his remains of 34 more murdered captives against any international law and any religious values and principles. Who does that? Since the last deal in late November 2023 that brought home over 100 women and children, we've been advocating for a deal that would bring the release of the rest of the hostages. We spoke on every stage, participating in meetings, and we've probably been in the White House over 20 times. And we appreciate that. After months of tireless work of the negotiators and President Trump's election, finally we started to see hostages coming out. A deal was signed, but it is fragile, and only a first phase has been agreed to. We trust that President Trump and his team will make sure that the release continues, among them six Americans that need to come home. And everybody else, all the hostages must come home. The first stage is bringing the remaining women, children, and elderly, and we have to make sure that all the other remaining 76 of them, our brothers, fathers, sons, our soldiers, and the remains, will all come home. We saw how starved and frail the three remaining hostages, returning hostages, came out this weekend. They are tortured in the tunnels. It is urgent. We must make sure that the deceased are returned respectfully for their families for an honorable final resting place. Our son Omer chose to put his life at risk to save thousands of others. We owe it to him to rescue the people he gave his life to and bring him home so we can get our own closure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronan. Ilana, will you share with us next?
Good morning. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you for your leadership in bringing the remaining hostage home. My name is Ilana Gritsewski. I'm 31 years old. Today I speak to you not only as a former hostage myself, but also as a girlfriend of Matan Sangauker, who is still in captivity in hands of Hamas. On October 7, at 6:30 a.m., when the sirens start, I was already awake, sitting on the couch with my coffee in my home in Kibbutz Nir Oz, near the Gaza border. I ran to our bomb shelter, brought the dog inside, and I screamed from my boyfriend Matan. 10 minutes after the first sirens, we start hearing gunfire and screams in Arabic. The kibbutz groups chat were already filling with messages about terrorists breaking into homes. one by one. Eventually, our turn came. They broke into our home, shooting everywhere, smashing everything. Matan and I jumped out the window, trying to save our life by running in different directions. I was so paralyzed by fear that I frozen and started hiding outside behind a cabinet. Then I felt a strong yank on my hair, a knee streak on my stomach, and they dragged me across the floor. They threw me against a wall and gave me 7 guns, RPG, and grenades at me. The only thought running through my head was, why does my family have to see me die like this? After threats, beatings, and more dragging, they threw me into a motorcycle and put me a plastic hood over my head. I had no idea what happened to Matan. On the way to Gaza, they keep beating me because for them, I was a prize. They also start touching me everywhere, and at that point, on the motorcycle, I passed out. Physically and mentally, I couldn't handle it anymore. I guess my body preferred to shut down. I wake up in some ruined house, lying on rocks, surrounded by Hamas terrorists. I was suffering from a fractured jaw, a broken pelvis, ear damage for explosion, and a burning leg. And that was not everything. I was also on my period when they kicked me. Try ask Hamas terrorists for a sanitary pad when you can't even move because of your injuries. On the first day, many people came to see me, to play mind games. One of them fixed it on me. He told me I will never leave, that I was beautiful, that we were going to marry and have children. Even if there was a deal, I would not be released. He handed me his gun, told me to play with it, and stole all my jewelry. The next day around noon, they brought me another hostage from near us. That gave me strength. I realized I wasn't alone. We looked out for each other. After a week, they moved us to a different place. I found myself walking through Gaza streets, holding the terrorist's hand if I were his wife. This time they took us to a filthy house, infested for cockroach. We slept on the floor with a thin mattress that wasn't a really mattress. We spent about 40 days there, with barely any food, almost no water, constant psychological terror. In 55 days in captivity, I lost 24 pounds. They did not give me any medicine. No doctors came to see me, even though I told them that I was suffering from colitis and anemia. The terrorists detected everything. When we can speak, when we could go to the bathroom, when we could get up, they wake up in the middle of the night for make us interrogations. From the moment I was captured, 2 guards were with me all the time. They did not wear Hamas uniform. They dressed like civilians. They told me that one of them is a math teacher and the other one is a lawyer. For 50 days, they make sure I could not escape. They told us all the time that we are going to be hostage for 5 or even 10 years. About 4 days before my release, someone knocked on the door. We wake up terrified, thinking we are going to be included in the deal. But they came to tell us we are going to home. They changed our clothes, moved us, and prepared us to leave. But it was a lie. They transferred us to a hospital, where we meet a third hostage. The next morning around 10 a.m., they told us again that we are going home. They moved us to another room, braved us, shaking us, gave us supplies, and told us to get into a car waiting outside. But instead of taking us to freedom, they take us to a tunnel. There we saw more hostage, some whom were my friends for kibbutz near us. I saw Eitan Oren with David Cunho, there who still remain in hands on Hamas. I was only then in the tunnels, after more than 50 days, that I found out that my boyfriend Matan was also hostage. just a short distance away, but I couldn't reach him. I begged the terrorists to let me see him, but they say later. The next day, they told me I was leaving. I refused. I want to see Matan. I knew that if I would leave, my soul would be remain in Gaza, but they didn't let me stay. So I left with a hole in my heart, promised my friends I will do everything in my power to bring them home. And now I'm keeping that promise. Please, help bring Matan home. President Trump is doing everything in his power to demand the release of all hostages. We are so grateful for that. Please stand behind me. Please leave all the hostages back home. I want to be able to be in my reality. I know with this step flip away, I can get my boyfriend in a bag. I don't want that. I want to be able to be in reality, to get married, to get children. No, I did have to ask all the day why I'm here, but they know. We are all humans with the same rights. We all have family waiting here. Why I'm different, why I'm here, but no. I want to be a bakery again. I want to be able to try to rebuild a life after this held. And in the only way I can be able to do that is when all hostages come home. So I didn't ask why I'm here, then they know. I don't want to bring my boyfriend in a bag. I want to be able to be kind in the promise that I did it to my friends that they went to return alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Moshe?
Good morning, Chairman Mass and representatives. Thank you for having us today on day 495 since our loved ones were taken by Hamas terrorists and their accomplices. My name is Moshe Lavi. I'm a proud Israeli, proud captain in reserves of the Israel Defense Forces, and most importantly, a proud brother to my sister Lishai Miran Lavi, and a brother-in-law to Omri Miran, who was kidnapped on October 7th. Lishai has been fighting for 495 days for the return of her partner, Omri. She has been fighting so that her family, her two daughters, Roni and Alma, will have their father again. Let me share a bit about Omri. Omri has a beautiful soul, a gentle heart, and a kind smile. He's a shiatsu therapist and a gardener, healing people in his clinic, healing plants in the gardens of Kibbutz Nahal Oz, where he started his life with Lishai. A lover of sport, a literature enthusiast, a man who is connected to nature, a spiritual person who believes in the goodness of the heart of mankind. He met my sister in March 2020, and amid the global pandemic, they fell in love, built a home to themselves, and started a family, bringing to the world my two nieces, Roni, who is 3.5 years old, and Alma, who will mark her second birthday in 2 months, in a month, in March, hopefully with her father. On October the 7th, Omri, Lishai, and the girls were at their home. Hamas terrorists barged into their home, luring them to open the door by using a teenager named Tomer Arava Tomer begged for his life, so Lishai and Omri opened the door. They wanted to save his life, even though they knew the terrorists would be entering their home. Tomer's body was found a few days later because Hamas terrorists were responsible for his death, despite the fact he was used throughout that day to make people open their doors. For hours, Lishai, Omri, and the girls were held at gunpoint as captives in their own home. They were grouped with another family from the kibbutz, the Idan family, whose eldest daughter, Mayan, was murdered that morning, and were abused. This was all live streamed on Facebook for the world to see. And despite there are naysayers today who are denying the atrocities of October 7th, we have plenty of footage, plenty of videos to showcase to the world of the atrocities Hamas committed that day. Hamas and their accomplices, including civilians, who entered the kibbutzim and the towns of southern Israel, where I grew up, and ravaged them, burning houses with people in them, raping women, killing and injuring countless people. At 1:30 p.m. that day, Omri was handcuffed and was instructed to stand up. That was when he was taken hostage to the Gaza Strip with a few other members of Kibbutz Nachaloz. Lishai, my sister, told him she loves him, she'll take care of the girls, and ask him not to be a hero. Omri responded that he loves her, and that was the last time they saw each other. Ronnie, my 3-year-old niece, tried to run to him. Luckily, Lishai stopped her. At 5:30 p.m. that day, Lishai and the girls were rescued. My parents and my other sister and her family were rescued as well. I could have been a man without a family. I was in New York at the time. I was lucky. My family survived. By being lucky means that you have a hostage in your family who is being held by Hamas terrorists for 495 days. I'm grateful for all the work done by our great ally, the United States, and its elected officials, you, over the past 16 months, whether by the previous administration and naturally by the current administration, the Trump administration, which has secured a deal that has saved thus far the lives of 26 individuals, Israelis and foreign citizens, who were rescued, released from the grips of the terrorists who held them captive. But our mission is not done. Our mission as families is to keep amplifying the voices of our loved ones. I'm here not to speak as Moshe, I'm here to speak as Omri Miran, who is calling from the dungeons of Hamas for the rescue, asking his own government to do everything it can to preserve our ethos, Israeli and Jewish ethos and social contract, to redeem our captives, asking for the international community to hold accountable the perpetrators of October the 7th and those who funded and sponsored them, including countries like Iran, and asking you to do everything you can to pressure the stakeholders, the mediator countries, to force Hamas to a viable agreement, to understand that we now need to act fast so that those who still remain captive, alive, will be saved and rehabilitated in the state of Israel, and those who were murdered or killed on October 7th or in captivity will receive the honor to be buried in the land of Israel so that their families will have a closure. This is our greatest mission. This is the greatest mission of our time as Israelis, as families of hostages, and I'm humbled that you took on yourself as a country, as representatives, to take that mission as well. I implore you to keep pressuring everyone to make sure that people like Omri are not forgotten, that their stories are shared everywhere, that their beautiful souls are the ones that matter, so that everyone will receive the closure they need. I thank you, both parties, for doing everything you can, and ask you to keep doing it so that this agreement will not fall apart and that we'll have the reunification of all hostages with their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Moshe. Daniel.
Hello. So first of all, thank you very much for welcoming us. I want to especially thank, of course, to President Trump and to you, Chairman Mast, for actually making it a humanitarian issue. Again, we felt for a long time that the hostages issue was not on the top priority of the world and was not on the top priority of the humanitarian aspect of it, and I really want to thank you for doing that. The stories of Ilana and Moshe, stories of Ilana as a woman, and Lishai. We have 3 others, starting from my grandmother, Yocheved Lifshitz, that been released after 17 days, waiting for her husband almost for 500 years. She's as well, we saw Arbel Yehud coming back home 2 weeks ago. Arbel was my stepsister and as grandchild to my mom, to my grandmother. Arbel is an amazing soul and coming back here without her boyfriend, Ariel Cunyo. Having my third, one of my best friend and an American citizen, Sagi Dekelchen. Sagi Dekelchen taught us in Kibbutz Nir Oz, the place where we have 25 hostages still coming from there from the 76. Sagi taught us to play baseball in Nir Oz, on the grass in Nir Oz, where so many people have been murdered and kidnapped. He's a hero, and his wife is waiting for him with 3 daughters at home. That's the holy work we need to go out from here, to bring those men back home to their women so they can have their lifetime shared together. If it's my grandma, and if it's Sagi, and if it's bringing Ariel to Arbel. My grandfather is the eldest hostage considered alive. My grandfather is the only great-grandfather held hostage in the world, Oded Lifshitz. He found Kibbutz Nir Oz in 1957, defending the country by founding this kibbutz so close to the borders, knowing the risks. He fought in 4 different wars from 1967 to 1982, risking his life. By doing that, he was also a humanitarian activist, a peace activist, a warrior for justice and for doing the right thing. My grandfather built a kibbutz. My grandfather built an amazing cactus garden, a 64-year-old cactus garden, which the last scene of my grandmother, when they've been kidnapped from the whole bomb shelter, when they've been dragged naked at home, she saw my grandfather on the ground, on the cactus garden they built for 64 years, and she thought he was murdered. But my grandfather, as a cactus, has a lot of resilience, and those hostages has the resilience, but not much more. The time is gone, and we saw what happened on Saturday, and we see the situation of the hostages. Also, my grandfather doesn't have that time, and we know, we understand, that painful concessions had to be paid to bring the hostages back home. But it's a victory to the Western values to bring those hostages back home. That's the most important thing. And I know my grandfather worked all his life for trying to bring education to the Palestinians, to fight for coexistence, to fight for so many things. And now is our time to pay back to my grandfather for everything he did in the world. And I think that now we have to work, all of us together, and to know that we have to change the strategy as well, and to give a legitimacy strategy. A strategy with, first of all, we bring all the hostages back home, and after we can eradicate Hamas. We can do it from the outside, and we can do it for them, because the victory that all of you, together with us, will make together is to bring those hostages back home, to bring Sagi Dekelchen home, to bring my grandfather back home to his grandmother, to bring Matan to Ilana, and to bring Lishai home. We beg you and stand here to tell you the victory of Israel is to bring the hostages back home. After we will eradicate Hamas, after we will make everything possible. You can dry them out. You cannot bring the humanitarian aid inside, and you can bring an short expiry, the humanitarian aid, to not make Hamas collect. You can stop the money going inside. You can do many things, but we will not be able to save their lives if we will not work fast and do it now. So we ask you, be with us. After that will be the steps for the future, for peace, and for everything. That's also my grandfather will and what he's coming here to ask from you, because I'm here for my grandfather, for the future of Kibbutz Nir Oz, for the future in Israel, and for the future of the Western value. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Gal.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for hosting us. I'm deeply grateful for your support and for your time. For almost a year and a half, we families have done everything we can to bring our beloved families member back home. Today, we're here to tell you their stories. Thank you for your support and ask you to keep doing everything within your considerable power to ensure the release of all hostages being held in Gaza. My name is Gal, and I am survivor of the Nova Festival. But mostly, I am Gal, the older brother of Guy Gilboa Dalal, who was kidnapped at the Nova Festival, taken hostage by terrorists, and been held in tunnels of Gaza ever since. I am older than Guy by 7 years, yet he is my best friend. He is a brilliant guitar player and has deep love to the Japanese culture. He was learning to read, write, and speak Japanese, and his dream is to travel to Japan and experience the sakura season. On October 7th, Guy attended the Nova Festival with his 3 best friends, Ron, Idan, and Evyatar David. Evyatar's brother is here, Eli. He will also tell his story. Evyatar is Guy's childhood best friend. Tragically, like so many others, Ron and Idan were brutally murdered. Their spirits are blessing to us today. Guy, along his best friend Evyatar, was kidnapped by terrorists and taken to Gaza. I managed to escape and return home. Because it was Guy's first music festival ever, he asked me to come along, and so I went with him to ensure he had a great experience and to look out for him. I arrived at the festival at 6:15, just 15 minutes before the alarm started. As soon as I got there, my brother ran up to me, hugged me and kissed me, told me how happy he was that I come. Like all good sons, he took a selfie and sent it to our mom to let her know we are together and we are safe. 15 minutes later, the alarm started. At that moment, I decided to go to my house, and Guy and his friends were supposed to join me. I wanted Guy to ride with me, but he said he didn't want his friends to feel like he was abandoning them, so he would return with them and meet me there. As soon as we heard the gunshots, the fog and the chaos of the moment set in. We were separated, and I couldn't find Guy. I couldn't get back to him. I called him, but he never answered. I'll never forget the sight of countless young people lying lifeless. I was shot at, had to keep running, taking cover wherever I could. And after nearly 10 hours of fleeing and hiding, I was finally rescued by our forces, only to learn that my brother had been kidnapped by Hamas. A video of him had already been published 3 hours before I was rescued. My parents, family, and friends knew he had been taken, but chose not to tell me, allowing me to focus on saving my own life. It shattered me. I couldn't bear the thought that I had gone there for him, to watch over him, and yet I left without him. Since then, my family, like so many other families, are tormented by our imagination of what Guy is enduring. While Guy is subjected to physical and sexual abuse, we are also psychologically tortured by Hamas sick games. Our hearts break at the sight of the recently released hostages. The horror they endured is an evident, and no words can convey the urgency of freeing all hostages more powerfully than the images themselves. It's been almost a year and a half since I last saw my brother, and he and the other hostages are running out of time. 76 hostages are still in Gaza, and most of them are still alive. My brother is still alive, surviving in these inhuman terms. We need your help. We want all the hostages home as soon as possible. We know from reading the press, anything can happen in the Middle East. These hostages deals, that's why it's so urgent to bring them all home now. We need Hamas to stick to phase one of the deal and to agree to phase two. I believe President Trump wants to and capable of bringing lasting peace to the Middle East. He understands that the only path forward is the immediate release of all hostages. Every single time he has spoken about Israel, Gaza, or the Middle East, he has brought up the hostages first. He has taken personal responsibility for this issue. You can't imagine what it means to us. I will do anything to see my brother again. But I also know in my heart that any last peace in the Middle East begins with release of the hostages. Without them, the healing process that the regime so desperately needs cannot begin. With your support, I trust President Trump will bring them home, save my brother, and give us a true opportunity for lasting peace. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gal. Eli?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Eli David, and my brother, Eviatar, has been held hostage by Hamas for over 419 unbearable days. For almost 500 days, my family has lived in a painful, endless wait, hoping for news, for progress, for the moment we can finally bring him home. Every day that passes without him is another day of uncertainty, of anguish, of time stolen from his life. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump for his leadership and for his commitment to bringing our loved ones home. The recent release of hostages is proof that determined action makes a difference. That when leaders stand firm and prioritize this humanitarian crisis, lives can be saved. We've seen progress, and for that, we are thankful. But we are not there yet. This first stage is a crucial step forward, but 76 hostages are still waiting in captivity, and their return must remain a top priority. Every one of them has a family desperate to hold them again. Every one of them deserves to come home. In the past few weeks, we've seen 21 hostages reuniting with their families. A moment of relief and hope for all of us. Each return is a gift, a reminder that bringing them home is possible. But my brother, Eviatar, is still not among them. He was kidnapped as a civilian from the Nova Festival, together with his best friend, Guy Gilboa Dalal. Both taken in an instant from the life they knew. While we celebrate those who have made it back, we cannot lose sight of those who remain. The mission is not over until every hostage is home. My brother was 22 when he was kidnapped. Now he's 24. He's the kindest person I know. He's an amazing guitar player. We play music every week. And I miss him so much. The second stage of this deal cannot wait. The lives and honor of 76 people are hanging in the balance, and we must ensure that we keep moving forward. We cannot afford to let momentum fade. We cannot accept the delays. Every day that passes makes the suffering worse. and our determination to bring them back must only grow stronger. I trust President Trump can help get us there. His leadership has already brought hostages back, and I trust that with his continued efforts, we can reach the next stage of this agreement. The families of the hostages are counting on the world to stay engaged, to keep up the pressure, and to make sure this mission is completed. To everyone in a position of influence, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, members of this committee, and all those working behind the scenes, please continue pushing forward. This is not just a diplomatic challenge, it is a moral mission. We must see this through until every last hostage, both the living and those murdered, are returned home where they belong. We remain hopeful and steadfast. We will not stop speaking, we will not stop advocating, and we will not stop fighting until Eviatar and all 75 other hostages are back in the arms of their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilan. Again, we just don't have the ability to know exactly how you feel, but thank you for helping to give us a glimpse of what life has been like. It helps us all to better understand and to be able to place ourselves in these situations that nobody ever wants to be in. So thank you for sharing with us, for sharing with the world. We're going to alternate from left to right to ask a few questions, learn a little bit more. I'm going to begin with my colleague, Representative Kim. We'll start with you. We'll start with Representative Kim. I didn't mean to hit you while you were standing up. My apologies. And then we'll alternate back to this side.
I welcome you, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I've taken notes, but we have already known about your family members and your loved ones. And so I just want to echo the commitments that our Chairman Mast and our ranking member and the colleagues here today are making, and that we will not rest until all hostages remains, or we don't, as you mentioned, Ilma, we want to see your boyfriend come live, not in a bag. And I really took that to heart, and I'm so sorry for the personal suffering that you endured and continue to do. So I really feel for you, from a woman to another woman, but also to your grandfather, to your brother-in-law, to your family members, to your brother and your son. I really feel for you. It's also good to hear that you have confidence in President Trump and in his leadership. You already said, L.A., that his leadership has already made a difference. And we're doing this in different phases, but we will make sure that everyone is back home with their loved ones. And we will not rest, and we'll provide the forum and the opportunity for you to speak out until everyone is back home. So I just wanted to also echo that Hamas's repeated attempts to exploit the recent hostage transfers is a good reminder of the need to work hand in glove to ensure an attack like this can never happen again. So I hope you will continue to speak out and tell us what steps are needed, in your view, to ensure that we can achieve Hamas enduring the defeat. If you want to respond to that, I would be grateful.
Thank you again. I think there are multiple areas that Congress can help. Probably the most important is to support President Trump administration in their efforts to bring our loved ones back home. We know how much they care. We know how much the people travel all over and do whatever they can, and they need all the support from Congress. So that's a first. The second, from our perspective, there are some economical sanctions that should be put on any charity organization that support Hamas to this day, and we gotta block them. We gotta make sure that Hamas is not getting any financial aid. And that's something that obviously is done through different countries. We keep on hearing that there's still ways that they're getting their funds. And both Hamas and Iran, their biggest supporter, should be blocked. And then from our perspective, we also feel that the Arab countries need to take action against Hamas and say loud and clear that even according to Islam, holding hostages remains is against any religious values, and they should call on Hamas on that. And Hamas should release immediately the remains of hostages taken and not use them as bargaining chips. That's against any religious value and any humanitarian law. So thank you. Thank you for taking this into consideration.
Moshe?
If I may add, and thank you for asking this. So as we mentioned, 21 hostages returned, there are still 76 who are held captive. And in this moment in time, the most important thing is, from elected officials, is to emphasize to whoever they speak, whether to other elected officials, whether to the administration or to the wider public, that the first mission we have in this war, and the most urgent one, is the release of the hostages. Anybody who studied history and war studies and served in the military know that there are urgent missions, short-term missions, and there are medium and long-term missions. Our medium and long-term mission is to ensure Hamas is dismantled alongside its accomplices, such as the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, ensure Gaza is a different place to the one it was on October the 6th, ruled by Hamas as a ruthless Islamist authoritarian quasi-state. But in the short term, the only thing we can do right now as a key to stabilize the region is to ensure all the hostages will return, those who are alive to rehabilitation and those who were murdered to be buried in the land of Israel. I was asked yesterday by an elected official who met the King of Jordan what I want him to ask the King. And like Ronen said, what we ask the international community and the Arab countries is that they'll learn not just to say no to proposals, but to say what they can do. What is their proposal on the table? And I saw President Trump yesterday meeting the King of Jordan and emphasizing to him, you need to bring us a plan. If you don't, we're not coming on board to our plan. And it seems that he heard that message. I implore you to make sure we pressure international stakeholders. I felt that in the past, including the previous administration, those regimes were not held accountable and were not pushed to the corner in order to provide us victims of Hamas atrocities. And those are Israelis and Palestinians. Palestinians are also victims of Hamas, to give answers. Let's make sure that the hostages remain on top of mind and that we can see an end to this ongoing tragedy and a vision for a better Middle East in the long term.
Thank you. Representative Keating.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. For some of you, it's 3 times I've met you and talked with you. Iana, thank you for telling us and the courage you had telling us what it was actually like in captivity. It's hard to say this about someone who's like Matan, who's held hostage, going through brutality. It's hard to say he's blessed, but he is blessed that he has you and your love and courage, and he's not alone. And I think he knows that. I always have felt awkward when we talk about this issue and use the term the hostages. The hostages. And thank you all for being here, because the reason that is so inadequate is because these are people. They have names. They have Omar, Matan. They have Ariya, Amri, Gal, Etar. They have names. And they have relationships, son, boyfriend, grandfather, brother, sister, mother, father. And thank you for every time you come, every time you speak up, that transcends. And it's important because this isn't just an issue or a policy. These are human beings. And you reinforce that, and it's essential. We also have our values together being held hostage. The values of Israel, the values of the U.S., of all our allies. And we have to always be mindful we are all being held hostage in that respect. Those of us that respect justice and decency, humanity, and we have to remain close so that we can be stronger against the opposite. We have an agreement now. Sides have come together for an agreement. Imperfect as it may be, it's an agreement. And so let me just tell you, at this moment, because we deal in the moment, and you've all dealt in the moment, in the roller coaster that you've been through. In this moment, I think it's important to have a mindset, all of us, of not how this deal can't be held, but how it can be held. Let's get through this moment. Let's both sides work together to just get this imperfect deal through so the hostages, so the individuals will be released and brought home to their loved ones. And until we do that, we can't rest. So that is the mindset, I think, of all of us here. It was a difficult agreement. Democrats and Republicans all working together on both sides because it's not a partisan issue. It's a human issue. And your presence here is so important to reinforce it. And I just want to thank you for continuing doing something that you didn't sign up for, something that was thrust upon you inhumanly, and something that I trust we can bring to an end, at least in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Keating. Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here and sharing your stories and your loved ones' stories. It's extraordinarily important, not only on October 7th, but in the 495 days since, that you share those stories on every platform that is available so we can continue to show the atrocities that Hamas continues to commit, the fact that Iran is supporting Hamas each and every day and is the head of the snake. We need to hold the terrorists accountable who masterminded the October 7th attacks. And can you please talk to us about how we ensure that the global organizations that over the course of the last